kidding. So fun.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to our friends on Facebook. Welcome to another installment of Mussar Mondays. We're coming to you live from the Torch Center, where we meet every Monday at 7:30 for a topic on character development and perfection. And let's hope that today you won't stone me, and that we can learn and grow from this topic. So as many of you may have noticed, those of you who are here live, you may notice that I have a bandage on my right arm. And for those of you on Facebook, it looks to you like it's my left arm, but it's fine, it's my right arm. And you're wondering, why am I having a bandage on my arm? So I'm not going to gore you with the very unpleasant imagery beneath this bandage. But I'll tell you the brief summary of it, and then we'll talk about the topic and why I was inspired to talk about this topic. Now, I want to make one very important disclaimer. This will not make everyone happy with every single pain or affliction they've ever experienced in their life. But it could. Okay? It's not going to solve every problem we've ever had, and it's not going to make us all smile because of the pain that we've experienced. But this is my personal experience, and I'm going to share with you some of the sources from our sages about how to best deal with pain and affliction. Okay, so let's get to the story. Last night was an important night in the Wolbe household. We were koshering our kitchen for Pesach. Okay, so there are many different methods and processes that you can use, but at the bottom line, if you want to kosher any surface, like marble or granite, countertops, you need to bring it to a boil of 212 degrees or higher. Okay, so you have to have boiling water, and you have to be able to either pour it on it, or other people use iron. On a wet marble, you can just run the iron on it with the steam coming out, and it can bring it to that temperature. And ask your local bona fide rabbi exactly how to do that, and do it safely, not like this. So I did most of my counters. We needed to do the sinks, and it was a little bit late at night. I took a towel and I picked up the boiling hot, big pot of water that was bubbling, and I slipped. And as you can imagine, I burnt my hand severely.
You sloshed out.
Right. Now, I was smart enough not to continue to hold it and let it continue to burn, so I just dropped it. But I got a nice big burn on the whole bottom of my right hand. So it was extremely painful. I can't even express to you how painful it was. It was so painful that every time it calmed down, it got worse. And this happened at about 12 o'clock at night, and I was not able to go to sleep. It probably even happened at 11 o'clock. I was not able to go to sleep till about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning because of the excruciating pain. And I'm not a complainer, I'm not a kvetcher. When I have pain, it's fine, we'll get over it, it's not a big deal, right? This was so bad, it was like a pain I haven't experienced almost my entire life. And after class, if you're interested, I can show you, and you'll lose your appetite. It's fine. But at least now, I'm not going to share with you the gory details. So, thank you, Davida. And thank you, Pascal. So I was sitting there under running water, right, for about 2 hours, and I'm like falling asleep, but I can't fall asleep because I'm in so much pain. I'm so tired. And the only time it felt good was when I was I filled up most of the bath, and I would put my hand into the bath and move my hand around, and it would get cool, or it would be under actual running water, and then there was also, it would subside, the pain would go away a little. But if I took it out, it felt like there was a blowtorch on it at 250 degrees or hotter. It was so hot, and it was like it was just I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do anything because of the temperature. It was so hot. But there was one thought that was going through my mind. What's the thought?
What's the lesson?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Now,
being
I've
taught?
koshered many a kitchen before. I never burnt myself, thank God. Never got into such a challenge. Never had any type of pain or burn like this. Why this time, and why now, and why did God want this to happen to me? And that is a very, very common question people ask, is why? Why do we suffer when we do have pain? You stub your toe, you hurt yourself, you bang into a wall, you have the door shut on your finger, you burn your hand, or God forbid something more severe, right? God forbid someone gets injured, a major injury, someone has an illness, someone has life-threatening disease. There are many tragedies and disasters that happen, and the attempt is not to try to solve every one of these questions, but to gain a basic understanding of what in the world is happening. And to me, my hand, I told you, what time did I go to sleep last night?
4:35.
4:35, right? I'll tell you what happened.
You were up all night.
I'll tell you what happened at 4:35, and everyone is very busy here tonight. There's so many phones ringing. So what happened? I'm sitting there and trying to figure out, while everyone is ready. My wife is sleeping. Some of the kids who woke up in the middle of the night are already back sleeping. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm sitting there with my hand in this big tub of water, and I'm trying to figure out, why did God want this to happen to me? I mean, everything was going perfectly fine till now. Why did we need to have a change or a diversion from the path we're going on till now? What wasn't right that God wanted to correct? And I'm sitting and breaking my mind trying to figure out what exactly happened here.
You didn't have good health insurance.
I actually have a pretty decent, it's not great, it's Obamacare, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to get political here, but it's a lot less than it was 2 years ago, I can tell you that much.
You should have used
right?
it. You went to the hospital.
Well, I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't think it needed to go to the hospital. I didn't think it needed to. Anyway, it's not a third-degree burn. It's not. And now, for those of you out there, I don't want to get sued. If you do have an emergency, go see a medical professional. right?
Don't do it.
Good disclaimer, right? Okay. Call 911 and get taken care of. I felt that it was under control, except for the pain. It was really, really painful. Now, pain is a message. We've discussed this hundreds of times in our classes over the years, and many of you are nodding here. Yes, you remember we've spoken about it. But to me, this was a very up-close and personal lesson. Why did this happen to me? Now, one of the things we need to understand is that it's not a mystery. When things happen to us, we can't say, well, I'll never know because God doesn't talk so directly. Yes, He does. He talks exactly in the language that you speak in. And I was constantly reminding myself, well, what can it be? I got to break my head. I got to figure it out. What could it be? What could it be? And I'm like, it's got to be something simple. It's right there in front of me. I have to just open my eyes and see it. Things we're not in tune to seeing messages from God.
In shock.
Well, we're not used to thinking that God is going to be so practical in His messages to us, right? So, yes, and I'm sure there are going to be people out there who are going to say, Rabbi, that's ridiculous. I know someone who died from a disease or died from a burn, right? I actually know somebody who passed away from a burn, first cousin of mine, right? May rest in peace, right? An 8-year-old child, a big, water burn fell over on him, and he passed away from burns throughout his body. It's terrible. It's terrible, right? So how do you explain that, right? So that again, there are things. As I said in the disclaimer at the beginning, we're not going to have answers for everything, right? We're not going to have answers for everything, but it doesn't mean that there aren't reasons for things. Right? And not necessarily, it could be that we will have answers, but it doesn't mean the answers will be pleasing. Right? But there are reasons for why things happen to us. Okay, so now, let's get back to my story here. So, I'm sitting there with my hand, and it is such excruciating pain. It's hard to describe it. Because again, for someone who I think knows how to tolerate pain, if I break a hand or break a leg or break a shoulder, I'm not going to kvetch about it. It hurts, fine, just move on, right? But this was so bad, I couldn't sit straight. It was out of character for myself. I'm looking at myself like, grow up already, just handle it, right? Be a man and struggle through it and just move on. And I'm trying to lay down in bed, with some ice. I just can't. I get out of bed. I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to sit down till I figure out. I'm not going to lay down till I figure out why this happened to me. So I'm going through all of these different thoughts. Going through, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Nah, it doesn't seem that. What is the connection? Why does it have to be a burn? Why does it have to be, on my hand? Why does it's trying to think of all the different types of connections. And then a thought came to me. But before I get to that thought, I want to share with you a quote from a very holy book called Torah Avraham, which is the Torah or the teachings of Abraham. Who is this great author? My great-grandfather. My great-grandfather was a man of terrible affliction and terrible pain. The story has it, I hope I don't have it incorrectly, but the story has it that he was on a train as a 9 or 11-year-old boy in Lithuania, and some thugs threw him off a moving train. And his legs were broken. He broke his legs from that accident and was never able to walk again on his own. And they didn't have medicine like we have today. And he was always needed to be helped. He had his 2 children. Later on, he had his 2 children who, he'd put his hands like they do for the firemen carry, right? They'd put his hand over their shoulder, and they would walk him to the synagogue and back, and to the shul and back, and to the yeshiva and back, because he was a rabbi in the yeshiva. So he dedicated a lot of his time to understanding pain and affliction. And in his book, he writes something really, really incredible. He says, Al zeh ani omer. It's right in the middle over here, so I'm just going to get to the point here. Al zeh ani omer. On this I say, Ki ha'ashgacha zachta otanu bedavar ha'memale makom ha'nevuah. What he's saying is like this. For generations, we had prophets. If you stub your toe, you'd go to the prophet and you'd ask the prophet, why did this happen to me? And the prophet would be able to tell you exactly why it happened. You wanted to understand something, you had a big dilemma in your life, you'd go to the prophet, he'd give you the answer. But today we don't have prophets. So, who are we going to go to? Says Rabbi Avram Grudzinski, my great-grandfather, he says the following. He says, what is going to take the place of prophecy?
Pain.
Yesurim. Affliction. Pain. That's going to take the place of prophecy. So you want to know something? Do you know that right now in this room we have many, many prophets? Because every one of us who are capable of experiencing pain or affliction, you're a prophet. Now, we're not about to say that you're a prophet for someone else's pain. Right? No one has the right to tell, oh, you know what? You know why you went bankrupt? I'll tell you why you went bankrupt. Because you didn't give enough charity. It's not anyone's business. No one can tell you why things happen to you. But you for yourself, you are a prophet. You are a prophet for your own affliction, for your own pain. Yesurim ein hema onesh al chet sha'avar, ela limud v'hora'at derech al chet shelo yavo. See, he says even more. He says that affliction and pain is not a punishment for the past, but rather a lesson for the future for a sin not to come. So it's giving you guidance, telling you, you're about to turn there, turn the other way. Right? You're heading the wrong direction. And to guide us for the future of our lives. Right? So, it may be that the very basic lesson is next time wear gloves, or on a very practical level, or make sure the floor is not wet so you don't slip, or don't do it at 12 o'clock at night when you're tired, or we can have all of those reasons. All of those are correct, but that's not the one I came up with. All right? And he continues to talk about this concept and this idea of that we have to understand that each and every one of us are a prophet. And we're going to have messages that come to us through sometimes not so pleasant experiences. Right? It's not going to be so pleasant. So that's clear, and he brings sources for it. He brings it from many different reasons, and maybe at a different time we'll be able to talk about troubles or pain or affliction that happens to a multitude of people together, not only to an individual. But now let's talk just to an individual, on an individual level, specifically this here. Okay, so I was thinking to myself, again, my hand is in the tub there. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I really want to go to sleep, but there's no way in the world I can overcome this pain. It is so painful that I can't get to that point of just like calming down in my brain. It's like all alarms are on. So I was thinking, nobody can possibly understand the pain I'm going through. And then a bell turned. Then all the lights started flashing. And I was thinking to myself, how many stories have I heard about recently? This person's going through this, and this person is having this procedure, and this person is suffering with this failure, and this person is having this challenge, and this person has this affliction. Sadly, recently I've heard many different stories. And there are times that there's nothing I can do. What can I do? I'm not a doctor. I can call them and ask them how they're doing. I'm thinking about you. I can add them to my prayers. But there's not much I can do. And then I was thinking, their pain that they're experiencing, nobody knows what they're going through. Perhaps what God is telling me is that I need to feel people's pain. I need to stop for a second, not say, oh, that's terrible, and just move on. Stop for a second and realize that someone who has, God forbid, breast cancer, or someone who has kidney failure, or someone who has other types of illnesses, stop and think what that is for them every single day. Yet, you're right, there's nothing you can do for them. Maybe you can refer them to some, to a doctor. Maybe you can refer them to an organization that helps people. They can be part of a group. Maybe I can do that as well. But internally, is there a way for me to feel more for them? Maybe I'm not doing that. And that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, my hand is in that tub, and I said, you know something? I think I got the message. I think God is trying to tell me, true, nobody can feel your pain, because perhaps nobody knows about it. But if you try hard enough, you can feel someone else's pain. And perhaps, and this is what I thought immediately, that's the message that God is giving me. God is telling me, wake up and start feeling what other people are experiencing a little bit more. And I don't want to leave you hanging here. Instantaneously, the pain subsided. It was the craziest thing. Suddenly, I was like, was this a joke? Right? It was like, how did this happen? It was like instantaneously I got this message. You got it. You got the memo. I have no need to hurt you anymore. Now, it's going to be a process till it heals, and it doesn't happen in a day. But you got the message. And I went to sleep.
Perhaps, Rabbi, if
Sure.
you remember that you always have said that the reason Moses was picked to be our
Is it because he felt that all the Jewish
That is
pain?
correct. And that was the quality of Moses.
To Moses.
That Moses was able to feel the pain of his people.
I don't think you're probably. You might be.
I don't think I'm a Moses, but perhaps
Hashem might be doing the same thing.
it could be that at this point in my life, God is telling me you need to feel more for people. You need to not just say, "Oh, that's really terrible. I'm so sorry," and then you move on. You're like, "Okay, next."
Well,
But perhaps, and that's not the approach I had at any point. But you're right, Pascal. It's compassion, and I think in a way it needs to be even more than that. We need to really get down to it and experience what they're going through. Experience what they're going through.
So is it
that people can't eat certain foods because of their illnesses. That people can't sleep comfortably because they're, all of the challenges that people are facing. It's a very serious thing, and it's a very sad thing. But the least that I felt for me would be the lesson. Would be take an extra few minutes and just feel that pain that they're experiencing.
Perhaps also you got your outreach, and perhaps you touch more people by your outreach and you hear more things than we collectively would hear.
Possible. Again, I think that, these experiences that we have are very individualized. They're for you and crafted deliberately for each individual. There are two people who can have the same experience, and each one has a different result. Right? Why? Because each one has a different message they're supposed to take from it. And this to me is, I think, a very, very important topic, and one which can't be glossed over. I think it's one that we need to internalize this idea. Number one, pain and affliction is a prophecy. Number two, prophecy speaks in your language. Number three is take action. Take action. Right? And there's sometimes that, there's no, thank God this was a small thing. And God should bless us that we should never have anything more serious than this. This should be the worst it ever gets. Amen. Right?
Yeah, amen.
But I think there's one more thing that we can possibly do. And that is prayer. You can always pray for someone else. And that's even if you don't understand what they're going through. You can pray for them. And even if you don't know their name, don't say, you know what, the Talmud says this, by the way. The Talmud in Tractate Barachot says that if you know the person, you don't even need to know their name. Or you know of the person. If you're close enough that you can consider them an acquaintance or a friend, you don't need their name. God knows who you're talking about. But the idea that you're ready to take special time of your important prayer, where you're talking to God and say, it's not only about me, about what I'm going to be asking for. It's not only about my needs and my desires and my, I want to have success and I want to have health and I want to have forgiveness and I want to have wisdom and all of these great things that we want bestowed upon us. We take the time to pray for someone else. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to take the time today. Right after this happened, I said, as soon as that happened, I said, that's class tomorrow. It's a real life experience. Mm-hmm. It's not theory, and it's not something which at some point maybe it'll be relevant. I believe it's relevant to me today, and that's why I wanted to share it. And there's so much that we can. There's an interesting thing is that you can't prescribe the same medication to every person, right? Some people react differently to different medications. Some people have a history that's different. Some people have a body, makeup, a build that's different. So you have to know. Some people can take us more serious. There's an interesting thing. How many prophecies, how many prophets were there throughout the ages?
So many.
Who knows? Right. They say that in the thousands upon thousands of prophets we had. But how many books of prophets do we have? Total, right? Total of 19. 5 books of the Torah and 19 books of prophets and writings. What happened to those other thousands? Right? Our sages tell us the great majority of the prophecies were not written down. Why? Because it's impossible for the future generations to come to the same sin or to learn the same lessons as they needed to then. That means the only ones that were selected to be part of our 24 books of Tanakh, again, the 5 books of the Torah and the 19 books of prophets and writings, are the ones that are lessons forever. But the other ones that were individualized and more customized and more specific, those are not going to be relevant to the future. We don't need to add it. It's coming to tell us something. It's coming to tell us that the prophecies that we do have are relevant. Those that we have on our day-to-day lives. Again, even a stubbing of the toe. It says that even if you put your hand into your pocket to get out a dime and you got a nickel, that's also a form of affliction. The same price, you could have gotten out the right coin. Right? So why did you have to get the wrong one? There's a message. Now again, these are delicate things. It doesn't mean that everything you do is right. You have to be careful about that, and not to become crazy from it. But as an overall principle, it is very, very important for you to for us to know that it's direct message to you as an individual.
Yeah, but Rabbi, what do you say to a person that's in a wheelchair, or a person that might be blind?
Okay, so here's a very, very important
He feels his
thing.
affliction, and how does that relate to why is he getting that?
Okay, so the first thing is that when someone else has affliction and pain, it's not our business or our place to start telling them, it's a prophecy,
right,
and that it's really God sending you a message.
Yeah.
Right now, that's not what they need to hear. Right now,
Right.
they need to have your sympathy.
Right.
They need to know that you're there with them.
Right.
You're going to encourage them. God willing, you'll feel better. You'll be healthy. You'll be able to walk again. You'll be able to see again. Try to encourage them and give them hope or make them feel like you're there with them. That's not our job. It's especially, I think, insensitive when people go to a shiva house, right? And they say, everything happens for a reason. It's like, that's not the right time, okay? It's not the right time for people to start giving the lecture on faith and the belief in God, right? Yeah. You wouldn't believe how many people don't have the proper sense.
No,
or they ask the following. They ask, so how old were they? What does it make a difference how old they were, right? Well, if he was 90 years old, it's like, okay, he lived a good life. What do you mean? It's my father or my grandfather or whoever it is, right? The person who's we should all live to 120, and our parents and grandparents who are alive, they should all live, long years to 120 years old.
We're not even supposed to speak to the bereaved anyway.
That's another thing is that we have to learn how to do that properly, how to visit the sick, and how to properly comfort the mourners. Right? The halacha tells us is that someone who's mourning, you're not supposed to talk. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to let the mourner talk. And I've sat with mourners, and keep my mouth shut till they ask you to talk or they ask you a question. You're there for them. And they've said the things that people tell them is just so obnoxious, and so it's like. Everything happens for a reason. It's like, really, there's no need for this is not the place, it's not the time. This is the wrong message. It's on so many levels, insensitive and not exactly what God has in mind, not the right thing. But for us, to ourselves, there's a lot that we can learn, a lot that we can evaluate and try to think into why this is happening to me. Why have I been selected or chosen to have this specific pain or this specific incident happen to me? And I don't think it would be a wrong thing for us to start to analyze. Experiences that happened. It could be small things. It could be why did the water boiler bust? Maybe I didn't do something, and then it costed me money to replace it. Why did I have to go through that? We've discussed that. Where there's money that has blessing, and there's money that doesn't have blessing. And the money that doesn't have blessing, you can steal it. You can do whatever you want to do to try to get it, and God will make sure you're not going to benefit from it. You'll hit a pothole. You'll have to replace the whole bottom of your car. You'll have, there'll be things. It's amazing how, suddenly your air conditioner goes out. It's a new $1,800 bill, right? So that's also something we need to evaluate. If it's that kind, maybe I did something that was dishonest. Maybe I did something that was not appropriate, or I didn't give the proper charity. I didn't give the proper tithe. It doesn't have to be the torch, of course, but it helps. but we have to really think about this. I'll tell you why it's so important. Because there are two ways you can live life. You can live life constantly thinking, I'm in a world alone and I have no connection to God. That's a person's choice. It's one of the gifts that God gave us in something called bechira, which is free will. You can choose to believe and you can choose not to believe. Or you can live in a world, you can live a life where you realize that God is involved in every single step. Now, I believe that is the real way to live life. Nothing is a coincidence. Nothing happens by its own, and nothing is happenstance. It happens because God had designed it to be like that. Someone was just telling me about a story of an individual who, by a friend inviting them, went to some event, and then someone else also came because a friend told them, just like, come, and they happened to meet there, and then it's like we think like everything is like it just happened to be that I met that person at that place at that time, and just like, no, it's pre-designed. The question is whether or not we want to live in a world or live a life recognizing that God is involved in every single step. And sometimes it's not going to be so pleasant, because why did God decide I should get a burn? Why did God decide that I should get a pot chair and hit my head on the cabinet, right? What was the message there? Now, and I'm not either saying, by the way, that every time we figure out what that prophecy is, that suddenly it's going to stop hurting us. To me, it happened to happen like that.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe he knows that you're capable of helping comfort a lot of people.
Perhaps. Maybe it was to inspire this so that we get a greater understanding, this topic of this class, so that we gain a greater understanding in what pain and affliction is. Maybe that's the reason it happened. Again, there could be many reasons beyond the lesson that I learned. But the underlying theme here is that we can believe that things just happen on their own, or we can live in a world where we have a clear and present relationship with God in everything that happens.
Okay, but your affliction is temporary.
Do you feel my pain, by the way? Okay, yeah.
Your affliction is going to be temporary. Me stubbing my toe is temporary. What about somebody like your great-grandfather that had a permanent affliction?
Again, so
That's a big difference.
But look what came out of it. He taught, you're 100% right, and the question for those of you who don't hear it online, and that is, what would you say about people who have a permanent life affliction due to that an experience, right? It's a great question, and the truth is, look at how much good came out of it.
For your grandfather.
Not only for your grandfather, for all those who study his book and benefited to understand and to be comforted by their affliction and pain. So that could have been the result. It could also be so that he can be able to comfort other people and explain to them, I also have my affliction. There are 100 different reasons that there could be for someone to have that lifelong experience of affliction, and none of them are necessarily going to be pleasing, right? But everyone has a message, and that message needs to be driven home. There is a message behind every single affliction. Now, the question is whether we're going to be open to that message. The question is whether we're going to be able to see it, and also the question whether we're going to be willing to accept it. But it doesn't negate the fact that there is a message behind it. Right? It's very, very lonely and disheartening to live a life thinking that everything is by chance. Right? It's not a great way to live life. Instead, God instructs us in the Torah through all of the stories that happen, we see that it was always God involved. You think about Abraham, think about Isaac, think about Jacob, think about every single one of our ancestors. We see the story being told from the perspective of God. And where God placed certain limitations and boundaries and afflictions and so on and so forth. Right?
Well, Rabbi, we were
And that was part of the greatness of their experience. Yes.
I'm sorry.
No. Sorry.
We were just talking about this yesterday because...
We were?
Yeah, we were. Because I was saying to you that this is, to me, this is also part of people having accountability for what they do. Because if you have an affliction like you have, and you sat there with your hand in the water thinking, wow, why did this happen to me? What is that doing? It's making you think, so you have you're accountable for your behavior. Especially if it's bad behavior, right? So we were talking about that last night. Why bad things happen to good people, but that's a whole separate thing.
That's a much bigger topic of why bad things happen to good people.
But we were talking,
who even said it's bad, right? And we'll see soon. I'm looking. There's a book that just came out. So why do bad things not happen to good people?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It depends on what the definition of bad is. The problem is sometimes we look at bad as being something very superficial. Oh, they stubbed their toe, must be bad. Right? But for someone who's a good person, they don't take it as being a bad. They take it as being a positive message and something that's helping them navigate and guide them to a better place. We've all had experiences that we thought to ourselves after that experience, why? Why did I even have to get into that to begin with? So you have a partnership that goes awry. You have you date someone and it falls through. Why did I need to get involved with this to begin with? Well, maybe it's a lesson. Maybe there's something you could learn from that person. Maybe it's to help you now appreciate what true love is going to be, what a good partnership is, how to understand risk for the future in a business partnership, etc., etc. There's so many different lessons, but only we can teach ourselves those lessons. Right? But for someone else, or for us, to go to someone and say, let me tell you why this happened to you. That's not only insensitive, but it could sometimes be very damaging and harmful to someone else. That we're deciding for them what the lesson is. And sometimes people are not ready to hear that lesson. They're not ready to hear that story. They're not ready to hear. And again, that's our job. We made this in the beginning. This is for each individual. This is not the way we help others, except for learning the lesson of being sympathetic to other people's pain, to being sympathetic to other people's affliction, and to other people's circumstances. Right? It's not always going to be clear. It's not going to always be clear cut. It's not always going to be so simple, right? But we have to do the best we can, because every single one of us, we are the prophets. We are the prophets. You're getting that pain, you're getting that affliction, you are the prophet. You're the only one who can decipher the code. And that person who has their affliction, only they can decipher their code. You can help them, you can encourage them, you can be there with them, you can comfort them, but you can't declare for them what it is. Right? And it's so important. It says in the Mishnah, it says, Aseh l'charav, make for yourself a rabbi. Ukneh lecha chaver, and invest in a friend. Right? A friend requires an investment. You have to take. Sometimes people act. I've heard of rabbis who've actually made a financial commitment for a friendship. Because it says kneh. Kneh means to acquire. How do you acquire? You acquire this water bottle. How do you acquire it? You pay money for it. So they said, baby, what you need to do is to actually acquire a friendship, meaning to invest. Doesn't necessarily mean money, but perhaps it's the equivalent of money, which is time, which is, right? But what's the purpose of friendship? The purpose of friendship is for someone to be there with you. Chaver comes from the term of chibur, means a connection. They're connected to you. They understand what's going on with you. They can relate to the things that are going on with you. And they can also guide you when you have a blind spot. We've just said this so many times. There's just this much that your eyes can see. It's about 140 degrees. Even including your peripheral vision, which is not detailed. It means I can see Elliot. Okay? I can see Elliot, but I can't see where his eyes are right now. I can see Jay, but I can't see where his eyes are. But I see that he's there, and if he raised his hand, I'll be able to notice it. I can't get the details, except the closer you get into your line of vision, you can see the greater detail. But I have a whole 200 and whatever degrees behind me in which I can't see anything. But all of my friends around here can see. And if there was something, God forbid, dangerous right behind me, you'd inform me. That's what a friend is there for. A friend is there to guide you when you can't see what's around you, when you don't know that there are other challenges right around. You're about to fall into a pit, they're there to save you. Or you're about to get involved in a relationship that could be damaging, they're there to help you navigate. And sometimes just to understand you and to be there with you. And that's our job, if it's not our own pain, if it's someone else's pain, to at least understand. Take the time to hear what happened, to be sympathetic, to feel their pain, to feel their affliction. To hear what they're going through. You're not going to be able to solve the problem. Perhaps you're not the doctor, you're not the nurse, you don't have the solutions, you're not the investor, you don't know what you can do. You don't have the money to get them out of their problem, but at least you can understand. You can be there with them. And this connects to a topic which we haven't gotten to in Mussar Mondays, but I think it's relevant. Maybe we'll continue after Pesach with this topic of Noseh be'ol im chavero, which means to carry the burden with your fellow man. It means literally to carry your fellow's burden. Feel their pain. Feel their challenge. Feel their joy, by the way. So your friend is happy. Be happy with them. We have this mitzvah, an interesting mitzvah, a special mitzvah for you to make a bride and groom happy. The day of their wedding, special mitzvah to dance in front of them and to do whatever you can to make the bride and groom happy. To show them that you're happy with them. That you're excited with their excitement. You're there with them. Special mitzvah. Not only that, you're supposed to say nice things about the bride and the groom, right, to the other, so that they're like, oh wow, you really married someone special. People have concerns, they have doubts. Here, they see the community comes out and they're so happy for them and they're so excited and they're so, right? But the responsibility for the people who are at the wedding, and even those who are not at the wedding, is the same mitzvah of making a bride and groom happy. You have to understand their joy. You have to understand. It's getting out of your own, I'm not in the mood of dancing. Right? I'm not in the mood, right? I'm not. The goal, the purpose of the mitzvah is to be there with them. Is to feel their joy. Now, everyone has a different way they can do that. Right? But that's the responsibility. Now, it's also on the opposite. If it's, God forbid, something sad, a tragedy that happens, to be there with them. Any type of worry a person has, every need a person has. Again, you may not be able to solve everybody's problems. Most likely, you won't be able to solve most of those problems, or even a few of those problems. But at least you can feel people's pain. You can be there with them in your heart. And that's being selfless, right? It's not only being contained within ourselves, but rather opening ourselves up and being connected to other people, being selfless, being kind. I think it's one of the biggest components in marriage, is feeling the other person. What is the other person going through? What does the other person need? What does the other person hope and wish for? And how can I help make that happen? Right? That's, I think, one of the keys to a successful and happy marriage. Is for, at least from the man's side, to to recognize that their spouse has a need, whatever that need is, to be there for them. And to understand it's constantly changing. Every person, they're hungry. Sometimes people remember to offer someone else a drink only when they're thirsty. But if someone really had this quality of no ve'ol, they realize, someone just came, they've probably been, running from one meeting to another meeting. They come into my office. They're probably thirsty. Not, I'm thirsty. I'm getting myself a drink. Would you like one as well?
It's very
right?
different.
That's okay. That's being polite. But that's not being thinking to what the other person needs. What they need, not what I need, and I'll just replicate it. Right? I'm cold. I'm going to cover. Do you also want me to get you something? Right? You're in the airplane. You have the person sitting next to you, a total stranger. So you go, especially if you're flying to Israel. It's a long flight. It can sometimes get pretty cold on the plane. So you ask for a blanket. What's about the person sitting next to you? Oh, do you also want one? Right. But how about thinking, do they need? And then I can think about myself. But that's, again, we'll talk about this in greater detail. So, any questions? No questions. Look at that. That's amazing. It was a first. So we're gonna sign off here on to our friends on Facebook, and I wish everyone a lovely, kosher, beautiful, healthy Pesach. We are going to be off for the next 2 weeks. Next week, Monday night is going to be Seder night, and then the following week is going to be the second night of the second days of Pesach. And anybody out there who needs a place for the Seder, for the Seders, please let me know. I look forward to resuming these classes right after Pesach. So 2 weeks off, and then we're back on. Have a lovely, beautiful, amazing, super duper Pesach, everyone.
You too.